But again, like I said, it's just a live preview, so it hasn't been, let's call it, baked in or finalized yet into the final mesh. So in order to do that, what I need to do is go down here to my subtool menu, and you're going to see there's a new Boolean menu in here, and you're going to see a make Boolean mesh. Now before you hit that, you're going to want to hit this D subdiv, and what that is all this dynamic subdivision we've been doing, which is causing, for example, if I turn these off, if I bake that without that button turned on, what it's going to do is if I hit Shift D, it's going to go back to these faceted versions of these objects. So in order to get these to look like how I have them, because I have dynamic turned on, dynamic subdivisions, no real subdivisions. If these were all real, in fact, if I hit apply, it'll make these real subdivisions and then turn dynamic off. You don't need to worry about turning that button on. However, if you are just using dynamic to kind of preview, before you hit that button, go ahead and do dynamic subdiv, and then you can hit the make Boolean mesh. So now that you've done that, you can go up here to the U mesh, and that's going to be our new mesh here, and you can go ahead and select that. And it looks like, oh, we forgot to fill our object with that. So we can go back here, we can select this one, and now that we have green and chalk, let's go ahead and do, with mRGB selected, color, fill object, there we go. And now when we hit the make Boolean mesh, it'll go ahead and inherit those properties. So you can see here's the one that didn't, so we can go ahead and select that one. We can hit delete, don't need that subtool delete. And now here's our new one. It's got an actual mesh, it's just one object here. Oops, here we go. Here's the new object, just one mesh. If I go into polyframe now you can see what the geometry looks like. Now the cool thing about this is if we turn off polypaint here and we look at we have lines turned on. If you don't want to see the lines, you can turn that off. We can just go ahead and go back to like matte cap gray with a white color. So here's our object here. We can turn on polyframe, and now you can see the polygroups and the lines. If we turn off the fill, you're going to see just the lines and not the polygroups. And you can see what it did was inherit the topology for every single individual subtool. So if you go back to this one here, you're going to see, oh, it's got the polarized caps on this mesh and all of this stuff. All of that stays the exact same in your final union mesh. It was subdivided, so it's got more geometry, but you can see that geometry stays alive. This original mesh right here, if we go back to this one, and we turn on polyframe, and let's go ahead and hit apply so we can actually see this, and then we'll go ahead and delete lower. So now you can see how this mesh is divided up when we hit that dynamic preview. This is the actual geometry for that cube. If we go to the union mesh here, it's the exact same geometry for the topology of that mesh and the topology for your insert meshes, and the only thing that changes is where these things intersect on the border. So pretty cool. And like I said, it goes ahead and also inherits, if we turn on polyframe now, it inherits the different polygroups for each one of those meshes. So if you had, say, a different polygroup for your caps as opposed to the rings around the caps, that would go ahead and be transferred to your union mesh model. So pretty neat, and there's a bunch of other things you can do with this, but at its baseline, this is how the Boolean live Boolean mesh system works.